I'm living in the Stone War! Welcome back, everybody. Season 2 of Dr. Stone is upon us. The Stone Wars.
Here on KHANTENT!
KHANTENT. Support us in our lovely coverage at subscribestar.com/KHANTENT. $10, all our bonus episodes. But in the Stone Age, an advertisement. That's a Chris Chan reference.
Always.
For the enlightened. Hey kids, want to impress your friends and induce sexual arousal in your neighbors? KHANTENT t-shirts!
Wow, I've never been more impressed in my life with anything!
KHANTENT now has official t-shirt merchandise, and you can get yourself some by clicking below the video or in the Teespring link in the description. With designs like the classic KHANTENT logo.
Or this!
I've got a shirt on too.
Or this. And right now, get yourself the I Survived Titan Week t-shirt. Unless you don't want to survive Titan Week, but hey, that's between you and Jesus. They're a great way to support the show and share your KHANTENT pride. So get out there, wear them, and get into KHANTENT. KHANTENT!
科学のびっくりドッキリアイテムレベル2先行玉だ
Well, here we are, season 2 of Dr. Stone. We're back.
Yes.
Everybody loves Dr. Stone, including me.
It's exciting again.
Yeah.
I would say we were, not that the show was boring per se, but like we had spent a lot of time sitting on the outskirts of the village, building things, getting prepped for a big battle that season 1 we did not get to see. Season 2 is now all about getting to see, assumably as they called it, Stone War.
When I read the manga, I distinctly remember thinking that village arc was like the biggest slog of the story. And it wasn't even terrible, but that was the biggest slog. After that, it was all killer, no filler, baby. So I'm stoked.
Excited to hear it.
Yep.
And I'm also excited because this is a show that does a great job of addressing my concerns and questions multiple times. Well, the first time was with, and this is just a production thing, that right off the bat, we have the CD that we heard at the end of the first season played again, but this time it actually sounds shitty like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Which retroactively made me okay with it.
No,
from
there's
before.
still instrumentals in there that don't make no goddamn sense.
Well, weren't they playing instruments? Like they had.
They had a guitar and one drum, and we hear like violin. We can see what they're doing, man.
yeah,
That's some fucking bullshit. Okay, but on a similar level, gotta say, the production has jumped in quality. There are some animation cuts in here of this girl doing gymnastics and shit that look absolutely gorgeous. Loving it.
I would say that it feels like they refocused their efforts a bit, because during season 1, the early episodes did look really strong, I thought, particularly capturing the character art well, but as it went along, it just kept degrading and less animation was happening, and it was getting slower where it would just linger on shots forever to the point that it was like unwatchable to me at normal speed by the end of the show. This has reset all that. We're back to the character art looks possibly the best it's looked. It seems like the designs are almost a little different. Maybe they've evolved or adapted to Boichi's art style better. It's not floundering in pace. It feels normal speed for animation. And yeah, like you said, there are some actual animation cuts. There's not a ton of animation in it. Like
I don't want to oversell that point. It doesn't look absolutely incredible moment to moment. There isn't like some visionary artiste who's crafting the animation moment to moment. It still feels mostly like moving manga. But to the point you were making before, it feels like they don't feel, or I feel, I haven't compared the manga to the anime or anything recently. It feels like they feel less obligated to like just panel for panel recreate things. I feel like they've adapted to the medium a little bit better, and it just keeps things from feeling like kind of shitty looking as the last season did sometimes.
There had been times during the first season, as I mentioned, where like the music is just carrying the show because like what you're seeing is so unexciting. I never felt that way with these 4 episodes. It always felt like everything, all aspects were engaging at all times. Even while we're doing science, we're managing to work action into it, separating our characters more so we can get, like, one of the most interesting things about this group of episodes is that it pretty much starts off with Crom,
Magma
and Gen as like a 3-man cell out to go scout and figure stuff out, and like that leads to this fun little scenario where they're being like hunted by an archer, and like Magma is dumb but strong and sociopathic to the point of willing to murder. Like, he's almost cuts down a statue just because. And
I love that moment.
They're like, hey, maybe don't do that. That's what the bad guys do. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. And they're like, well, just listen to us at least.
That moment where, because our characters are involved in a war now, possibly for their very survival, and they might get obliterated because they're on the wrong side of this conflict between Tsukasa and Senku. Tsukasa is willing to kill people, clearly. Magma's approach of like being willing to kill someone for the sake of the war makes total sense in warfare, but our characters, our team is committed to this like higher level victory of like no bloodshed, which is a very idealistic and I dare I say unrealistic goal, but it makes sense and you want to believe in that. Contrast that with some of the things going on in Attack on Titan right now. We're living in different worlds here, baby. But both are enjoyable in their own way.
Yeah, I mean, and this plays well into my theory of calling this a otaku hero's journey type narrative. I've always said that one of the parts of that is the idea of bloodless revolution, that everyone can be saved, you don't have to kill anybody. Senku truly believes that. And there's no reason not to operate under that logic, because if it turns out you do have to kill somebody, at least you didn't go into it with that intent of like, no, like if everything went according to plan, no one would have died. It doesn't mean that nobody can die.
It's idealistic, but this is a fucking manga. It's supposed to be idealistic for this story.
I would argue you should just live your life idealistically. You should be in the mindset no one has to die. Like,
as much as possible,
like realistically, if like the only reason anyone has to die in real life is that things aren't being done right, like the plan sucks. Everyone's plan sucks compared to like if you had Senku leading your whole population, he could probably make it so no one had to die. But
you like to believe so, yeah.
Right. I mean, and we're gonna see the stress testing on that as the series goes, obviously. So it'll be really interesting to see, especially if someone dies. How are they going to deal with that? What's going to be like when Senku's got blood on his hands?
Oh my God! So we're off to the races now with a whole batch of new inventions for various things. First thing, they need space food. We need freeze-dried food for our troops to be using out in the field. So we go through the whole. I love it, man! I fucking love it. They freeze the ramen they've made. They dry the food. Now we've got cup ramen, baby, in the stone world. And you can revive it, and it tastes even better than it did before we freeze dry it. That's just for starters. They use like the vacuum sealing technology to do it. What else they got? Oh, so during the first conflict, as they're beginning their foray, because winter is not coming, winter is ending. And they need to make sure they attack before spring, because that's when Tsukasa is going to bring his superior numbers down to them. First step on the progress of getting that is they have to take out the scout Homura. Otherwise, she'll let them know and they'll just obliterate them before they can do anything. So it's time to use our technology and our strategies. First of all, again, I mentioned it before, but the conflict between Kohaku and Homura with her like gymnastics power just looked great, was super cool. Love seeing these two.
I'm glad you used the word power, because characters in this show definitely have superpowers.
Yeah, it's not normal. It's not normal what they do.
We get introduced to the bow and arrow kids got super hearing.
Yeah.
Just like
he was a sonar operator in a submarine. That makes sense.
How old is that kid supposed to be?
He's got to be in his 20s at least.
I guess so.
He could be in his, he's a youthful boy. He's like smaller than these like 15-year-old high schoolers or whatever. All right, fine. Some people are short. But the strategy to take out Homura. We just get a bunch of great tech stuff used along the way. What's the first one? We get this brilliant looking like Motoko from Standalone Complex, whatever, 2045, whatever it is, uses this weird shield to prevent against like a giant light explosion, a flare attack.
Makes a flare, yeah.
Oh my God, so cool.
And he teaches you how.
They teach you how to make a flare. It's all realistic. That's the charm of Dr. Stone. It's great. I love seeing it. I've seen these masks before. I've always wondered if this is actually practical. What is it doing? It's like letting little bits of light through these holes. Like, why not just use like sunglasses or something?
I have no idea.
I don't know. Who cares?
The best part about this scene is that he hits her with the flashbang, gets her on the ground, has her detained, and everybody's like, "Wow, Senku actually did a thing," and then she's literally thinks, "Oh, there's no way I could just get up from." Oh wait, and then just gets up because he's
a weak, scrawny fuckboy, and he can't stop anybody. But luckily, this allows him to use his second invention thing here, ultraviolet light. Because remember the little arc of that glowing stone that only glowed in the morning sun? That's because that's when ultraviolet light is shown. He makes his own now, and he can fucking track her by... The logic here is he had scattered the powder of whatever that rock is, like on himself or her when she had jumped on him so that they could track her rather than just like tying her up when they had the opportunity to do so. Brilliant plan, Senku, as always. Okay, whatever. Point being, he gets to bust out a really cool ultraviolet light used for tracking her, and they do successfully capture her in a pincer move using their telephono technology with Chrome and the other group. And they...
Yes, I think the idea is that she knows they have a phone,
yeah.
So they fake having a phone tower.
Right.
And so when she sees a phone tower, she's like, oh, I got to take that down. But that gets her up the top of this big tree, so they chop that down. Because
they're revealing the information to her, basically, that they have phones, that none of Tsukasa's people know yet. This is new. But yeah, the point is she gets captured and she's out of the picture now.
I hope we get to see more of her because she's really cool. I like her over-it personality.
I like her personality and her weird like flower hair thing that looks cool.
And that she does cool gymnastics, which is obviously
all great.
Badass.
I want to see more of those. And so ultimately we get to the point of all of this. They do successfully navigate this obstacle. It's only been 4 episodes, but where we're at now is our boys have successfully planted the phone.
This was a great gimmick. So we learned that Senku had told Taiju and Yuzuriha, build a grave, build me a grave and visit it every day so that they truly think I'm dead. And of course, since nobody else goes to the grave site when they go, that is where he sets up the other end of the telephone and finds a way to secretly communicate to them that it is there so that he can give them the deets. And now we've got people on the inside. It's great.
Yeah, and let's just talk about the plan. So, okay, they've established communication. What's the point of that? Point being, they're going to use the recording they've got of Lillian. This is their plan. And they're going to use Gen's voice-faking abilities to pretend that Lillian, who's an American, a God-fearing American, like those of us here on KHANTENT, to imply that the United States is alive and functioning to give false hope to Tsukasa's troops so that they will defect from this primitive society and be like, oh my God, we can actually live back in modernity and survive on our own. If we're not depending on Tsukasa, we're much more likely to want the niceties of modern life and stuff. So this is the plan. Use the recording they have of Lillian's actual voice and just tell them lies in Gen's approximation in order to do it. So that's the plan. And
they luck out pretty hard with this plan in that the first person from the enemy team that Taiju and Yuzuriha bring to the phone is a woman who happens to be the world's biggest fan of, what was her name?
Lillian Weinberg.
The biggest Lillian Weinberg fan, which is a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, she is able to suss out that it's a fake voice on the other end of the line through asking personal questions, and it's not even that she gives the wrong response, it's that the fake Lillian gives the wrong response.
Right. She's too truthful about her sizes
too honest.
As a star. The logic of the fan is that even in this world, Lillian would never give out her true 3 measurements because she'd want to preserve the kayfabe of her character even now. That's the logic.
Well, because she basically hears the measurements that's fatter than I thought you were. And she's like, well, they have good editing in the...
They all say she must have photoshopped. Of course her sizes were exaggerated, which is funny considering Boichi's art, which is the most Barbie doll-ass builds of all time. But in fact, I'd love to, they give us the numbers, I'd love to see what a real person with those looks like compared to Boichi's art.
Those are some pretty big numbers on the bust and ass. Those were some big numbers.
I mean, that's definitely true. It's the waist that's the X factor here because they're, very tight in Boichi art. But so that's a funny way to handle this. I remember when I read this first thinking okay, pretty big convenience. I appreciate that Boichi gives us what looks like a big advantage of she's a big Lillian fan, but also the oh no, it's actually a curse because she's, she's so critical and she knows so much, she susses them out. But ultimately, she just does turn in to be the perfect person to be super helpful on this quest. So very lucky.
And the great twist here is that Gen's whole plan doesn't really work at all. It mostly amounts to just a funny scene that introduces this character before she hears the actual song. I like Senku's line where he says, let's just use science instead of bullshit.
Yeah.
Plays the song and she's like, okay, well, like realize, now that he realizes she's a huge fan, and this is the only existing recording of this woman's music.
All the others are
world.
gone. Yep.
She literally converts to their side just to help protect that song because of how important Lillian's music is to her. I would love to know more about like why, like what is the appeal of this music to her, What did it help her through?
We see a couple shots of her. Nikki is this character's name. We see a couple shots of her, like, sitting alone in bed. She says that, like, she was so butch. Who knows if this translation's exactly right. But I think the implication is that she was, like, a tomboy and had trouble fitting in because she's too masculine or something. And, like, she didn't fit in well. And the music of Lillian... Are those themes present about not belonging, perhaps? Or, if you listen to, like,
I didn't pay that much attention to the lyrics of the songs, admittedly.
This one song, like, the one that we've heard, like, the lyrics are extremely generic, like, you gotta keep going, you gotta put one step in front of the other. The song's called, like, From Zero or something. It's about, continuing to work. It's a reference to Senku in the meta of the series.
More like Re-Zero, starting life in another world with my smartphone.
With my vast knowledge of scientific truths and discoveries. Yeah. Whatever, man. Anyway, point is, it's a fine hook. I appreciate that they were able to get somebody on the team. I'm not going to sweat it about all the details. This story is idealistic and a little convenient. It's fine. And this brings us to the other kind of conflict going on of Ukyo, who's like one of the top 3 people, the sniper, good hearing guy, who's in the middle of a fight with Magma and Chrome and Gen. Now, this was interesting, or rather, this was kind of bullshit. I noticed that we cut like right from the fight of Ukyo and those guys to like them at the grave, and I was trying to wonder, what is the fucking time frame that these things are happening in? Because at multiple times, we see Gen was here, fighting things like at the graveyard, and then like we cut to Senku saying, I hope Gen gets back in time for like the phone call we're making right now with these people, and Gen shows up like out of breath. How far away is this place? It's gotta be like days, right? Isn't it multiple days of travel?
I don't know. I didn't assume that they had made it all the way there, so I don't know. The
logistics are starting to not make sense.
I kind of wasn't assuming that the scenes were taking place at the same time, but if they literally are supposed to be, then yeah, it is kind of weird.
That's the thing. I kind of agree. I think they must not be taking place at the same time, otherwise it would make no sense. But I'm getting confused on the chronology of things happening. Luckily, I don't care that much, and it's not the point or what makes Dr. Stone great. If you're looking for like complex military tactics and warfare, I think Dr. Stone is going to start letting you down around this point because it's not that focused on those elements. What it is focused on is more like broad metaphorical themes and just science doing cool science stuff. So that's what you should be looking for.
It's really about the building the stuff. More like the solution is like, hey, we have to figure out how to knock out all these steps in building this thing, and then that just punches through the wall to the next stage usually. It's not about shouldn't be about the fight, basically.
Yeah. They really veer away from fighting in general here, which is obviously much of the point.
Despite it being called Stone War. And I also felt, this is another one of my concerns being addressed quickly, because at the start of this series of episodes, he talks about the vacuum food, the space food. And so immediately I was like, oh man, this is going to be fascinating because you have modern supply lines, basically, is what he's trying to create. The other guys, he's like, we're fighting at the end of winter. They're going to be like at their minimum power. They're not going to have warm food when they go out into the battlefield and everything. Like we're going to have vacuum sealed food and stuff. And the second that he said that and I started thinking about supply lines, I immediately asked myself, why don't they build a vehicle? And so it became one of those things where I was like, I don't really care if they never do. But from this moment on, it's going to be something that's always in my head. 2 episodes later,
we've got
Senku
1.
Let's build a fucking vehicle. And I'm like, perfect. This is all I needed. We're on the same page. No doubts. I'm being taken care of.
It's great to see them doing logical things. They're traveling large distance. Of course you want something to make the travel easier. We're seeing these people running everywhere. So they make a fairly primitive, like apparently a real world steam engine using like the technology. We see how they make like the fine parts using this like wax molds, pouring into plaster with brass.
Actually, my concern was actually addressed in episode 2 because the OP played and there's a tank.
There's a tank in the OP.
OP, so I was like, oh, okay. Good, we're going in the right direction.
So, I mean, yeah, yeah, we have now a vehicle. The point being to transfer like all their forces, their whole troops, to bring them there in one fell swoop so they can launch like a big assault all at once or something. Oh, and by the way, Chrome has been captured now. Chrome is taken captured by Ukyo, who he just there's some explanation. He allows himself to be captured so that his friends can escape. Okay, very noble of you, Chrome. But then we get Chrome face to face with Tsukasa for the first time, our science man of the new world versus our old like primitivist guy, and the interaction between those two was great. First of all, Chrome is like, bro, listen, science is great. I'm just telling you I'm a sciencer. By the way, I love the whole thing of they're like, Chrome's going to keep his mouth shut and he'll be fine. Is Chrome likely to keep his mouth shut? No!
I thought that was hilarious because, yeah, Senku's like, well, thinking logically as a science man, I would just shut up. But, like, Chrome is so excited about science that he's just convinced he will be able to, like, he's like, all right, fuck all y'all. Yeah, Senku is alive. I know about science. You guys are gonna love it. We got colored lights or
fire
something?
And stuff.
Colored fire. Yeah, they're all like.
They're
and
not
then,
impressed.
like, cut to him dangling over a cliff from a spear.
Great comedic cut right there. Yeah. And so that scene where they're just doing the thing of, okay, Chrome, we've captured one of the enemy. We're now gonna like torture you or kill you unless you just tell us everything we need to know. And Chrome gets his greatest moment where he's dangling there and they're like, hey man, listen, I don't totally hate technology, Tsukasa says. We actually use fire and tools. It's just that we can't get carried away. You know, nukes, war, large-scale military conflict, there are absolutely bad things that come with technological advancement. I'm just gonna try to cut all that out. We can still live a good life here, Chrome. We'll let you be a sciencer. You can do what you want. We'll give you like a harem. We'll give you all these great things. And Chrome's like, oh, that sounds pretty good, is what I would say if I was a piece of shit. Just kill me, bro. And Chrome accepts his death, doesn't speak a word against, they let him fall and die, except they save him at the last moment. But he's faced with death. He has his Pastor Nick moment from Attack on Titan where he faces the fire, and he does not flinch from death. What a badass. Best character.
This also puts us in an interesting position of Tsukasa's not necessarily out trying to kill all his enemies either.
No,
he might be trying to convert them because like he obviously likes Crom and wants him on his side, saves his life, which is, you know,
it was great.
Not necessarily an advantage to have this guy unless you think you can convert him to your side. So, like, I would think that's what Tsukasa's trying to do.
I would think so. Specifically, if they can get him to convert, he's got a lot of useful information, tactically, no doubt. And Chrome is kind of one of the most important people. And you know, like, I could say that, like, you know, in a real war scenario, would one general, like, theoretically just do whatever they need to do to get, you know, the stuff out of Chrome? Chrome's been faced with death, but he hasn't been faced with torture. Those are two different things. Chrome is a naive young man. I think you could get some information out of him if you put the screws to him and just started really fucking with him. That being said, Tsukasa is an honorable person. Well, while this may be naive, this whole conflict is fairly naive. Because, like, Tsukasa hasn't killed a single person who wasn't in stone, like, already. So I'm kind of saying that Tsukasa's a bit of a coward. Like, he doesn't have the balls to, like, revive someone and kill them. I know that would be inefficient, but he hasn't, like, killed anyone man-to-man, face-to-face. He kills them in stone form, like, well, they can't defend themselves, well, they can't plead for their life. So I think he might be a little more, like, soft-hearted or squishy than it leads, you know, than you might otherwise think, than his reputation seems to be. So, like, I find it believable. Again, Dr. Stone it's kind of, like, poppy and happy and jovial and optimistic. But every character's kind of that way for the most part in the series. So I don't find it to be like narratively breaking or anything.
No, not at all. These 4 episodes I feel like had more content than like a lot of, well, I guess there was the great arc of the dad and everything in space.
Yeah, that was
towards
good.
the end of the last season. Yeah, it just felt like the ball was really rolling and like we're actually doing the thing.
We've set up all our players.
And this is the Stone War season, I believe, is only 11 episodes.
Oh, I didn't even look.
So I'm guessing that like the conflict is about to just begin, like shortly.
You know, I don't remember every detail. I think this doesn't take super long in the manga. See, what I'm dying for is immediately after the war, my favorite stuff in the series, my favorite character Ryusui appears.
I had to wait for season 3 for that. He's going to be a teaser at the end of the
He
last
is
episode.
going to be a
of
teaser.
this.
We're going to see him in stone in the last shot of the last episode, no doubt about it, because he leads to everything that happens after this and the future progress. But getting ahead of ourselves, these episodes were quite good. I was not killing myself watching them. Things looked better than before. So Dr. Stone is on the upward trend, no doubt about it.
I enjoyed it.
I am excited to see more episodes, so I can't wait to have another couple of weeks and we'll do another one.
Big
of these.
approval on Dr. Stone, and there might be big approval on you and your family name if you send in a KHANTENT clip and honor your legacy from now on.
You'll be immortalized forever. You'll be like the glass recording of that thing that lasts forever.
Yes.
You'll be immortalized in a KHANTENT episode if it makes the cut and we put it on the end of the episode.
KHANTENT!
And you will also be immortalized in my heart if you go to subscribeshow.com/KHANTENT and give us $10 for all our bonus episodes and to support the show in general. Discord, Twitter, KHANTENT clips, join all those things. See you soon.